Hello there, and welcome to today's episode of the Easy EdTech Podcast. My name is Monica Burns, and I am so glad that you're here to join me today. If you want to make the most of education technology, aka EdTech, well, you are in the right place. My goal has always been to help make EdTech easier and give you ideas you can try yourself, share with a colleague, or bookmark for later in the school year. Every Tuesday here on the Easy EdTech Podcast, you'll hear stories from my time in the classroom, the work I do now with schools and districts, and my travels to different EdTech events. Get ready for solo episodes where I share some quick tips and stories, and interviews full of practical ideas and stories from new guests each month. If we mention something you'd like to check out, make sure to click the link. You'll find it in the episode description or the summary area where you're listening to this podcast, or you can find every episode and all of the resources we mention by going to classtechtips.com/podcast, or by going to classtechtips.com and just clicking on the Easy EdTech Podcast button at the top of the page. This episode is sponsored by EverFi. Do you want to equip your students for success in both their careers and personal lives, but find yourself racing against the clock? EverFi is your go-to solution. Their digital lessons align with state standards and the prestigious ISTE seal. These lessons are crafted to empower your students to excel in our dynamic world. Engage and inspire with interactive, self-paced lessons meticulously designed by content experts. From financial literacy and workforce readiness to character building, health and wellness, these lessons are tailored for students across all grade levels. Best of all, thanks to EverFi's generous partners, these research-based resources come at no cost to all K-12 schools, districts, and students. Visit everfi.com/Monica. That's everfi.com/Monica to get started today for free. This week's episode is all about chatbot prompts to share with families. That's right, chatbots like ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude are things that families might be trying. And in today's episode, we'll explore why you might encourage families to use AI tools, particularly if they're asking questions about AI and education, and how they can leverage generative AI, like those chatbots I mentioned, to gather ideas for outside of school hours, holiday breaks, a long weekend, you name it. So we're going to look at some chatbot prompts to share with families, ones that make connection to course content or what kids are learning in school, sparking conversations, and even finding great resources to share with their kids. So what exactly are chatbot prompts? Well, these are the questions or instructions that you share with an AI-powered chatbot. And there's lots of free chatbots available, many of which a family could access from a smartphone or a computer. And this year, I've hosted oodles of workshops and given presentations where I've shared chatbots like ChatGPT and Gemini, just two examples of chatbots. And what I like about these is that they are really ready for families to jump into. Families don't even have to sign in to ChatGPT if they don't want to. Gemini is also free if they log in with a Google account. So lots of ways that this can be an opportunity to get families familiar with what AI can do, answer some of their questions about the role of AI, perhaps in your school or district, and really just give them some tools to make great things, right? To share with their kids, like a riddle or a song, or to help them find some supplemental resources. And if you have read one of my blog posts this year, maybe teacher tips to use Gemini to save time, or 50 ChatGPT prompts for teachers, you know I've got a lot of ideas focused with educators and instructional planning in mind. And I'll link out to all of those. You can find a whole bunch by just going to classtechtips.com/AI also. So know that that's there for you, and that we're kind of shifting a bit to say, how might we Introduce this to families. What prompts could I share with a family member? Maybe you have a family night dedicated to this, or you just pepper a few into a conversation that you're having with a family. So there's a few reasons why this might be worth sharing with families in your community. One is accessibility. Chatbots are available 24/7, so it's a really good learning companion for someone who's busy and on the go. And since many of these are free, right, you can just use the freebie version. Families don't have to sign up or pay for anything new or extra. So accessibility is a big one. There's also the personalized learning component. Chatbots offer tailored responses that really cater to individual interests or needs. That means a family can ask for something really specific, and we'll get into some of those examples in a moment, that connect back to what their kids are interested in or working on. And then the third reason, it's fun, right? It's fun and engaging. And chatbots can turn learning into a really new, fresh, enjoyable experience, interactive in some cases, for families. They might write songs or riddles or gather ideas related to a specific learning goal one of their children is working on. So that accessibility, the personalized learning component, and just that this could be a little fun and new for them are all reasons why I think this is worthy of your consideration. So in today's episode, I've got a list of a few categories of prompts to try. So a few of them that, are big categories, then I'll give you some prompts that go along with each of them. And you can find everything in the show notes for today. And I'll link out to a blog post that goes through some of this in text format also. That way you have it there to go through too. So the first category is that you might have families use chatbots for learning something new. So they could ask a prompt like, tell me about, and then the topic the child wants to learn more about. So it can help give them some background info. Or let's create a list of fun summer, fall, winter projects for my age or grade level child. That's great for a long weekend or a holiday break. We live in city-state. What are some problems in our community that need solving? So that's a great way to get them thinking about ways that they might volunteer or help or just spark conversations around where they live. So learning something new, first big category. Next up is storytelling together. You might have a family or encourage them to try prompts like write a story with once upon a time about, and then they put in the topic, and they and their child can decide on what topic they want to do. Create a story with and then they can pop in the child's favorite animal as the main character. Invent a superhero with the power of, and then add in their power. So for this one, a family might sit down and explore a chatbot side by side together and create some different stories with the input of both a family member and their child. Next category is exploring history. You might ask a chatbot, what happened on this day in history? Or tell me about a famous person born on, and then you can put in today's date or a child's birthday month. Explain the events that led up to, you can put the moment in history, so it is easy for then you can put in the grade or age level of the child to understand. So those would be great if you want to give families some prompts to really explore history together. So if you're a social studies educator listening to this, that might be your category that you hone in on here. Next up is movie recommendations. Now I'm recording this for you, so it'll go live this fall. I feel like this summer has been just Olympic crazy for me. I'm going through my Olympic withdrawals right now of deciding what we're going to watch next. So even though you might be over it by the time you listen to this episode, because a couple of weeks will have gone by, you might see a chatbot as a space to go for recommendations. So the first category is movie recommendations. Make a list of kid-friendly movies that take place in, and then the family could pop in that period of history. Or suggest movies that feature, and then you can pop in that child's interest. Or my kids loved, and then you pop in the name of the movie. What other movies might they like? This is great if you're having like streaming overwhelm, or you're having families ask you for recommendations for like movies that might connect back to something they're learning in school. You can get a little more specific, like saying movies on this streamer. It's not always going to work, but it might be an extra parameter that you add in. You could put in just like the name of the movie that kids already love. They can put in an actor or a genre, right? So lots of ways that you can tailor it, but it's a great one if families are asking you for streaming recommendations and maybe you're hesitant to recommend a movie that you've only heard of and you've never seen. This might be an opportunity to say, why don't you head to a chatbot? Let me show you how this works. And it can open up a new way for them to gather some recommendations. So the next category is also recommendations, but this time it's about books. So this category is book recommendations. A family member could use a chatbot to say, we're in the mood for a funny book. What can I read aloud to my age or grade level child? Or recommend a book with a character who, and then you describe a type of character and ask for recommendations with that in mind. Or I want to read you put in the genre, book aloud to my child who is reading at, and then you put in the reading level, make a list of 5 suggestions. So if you're ever sharing reading levels with families at, say, a parent-teacher night or conference, they might not know what to do with that information. They might be something where you want them to take that info from a parent-teacher conference, like a reading level. Maybe they go to a local library and they bring that up when chatting with a librarian, or maybe they pop that info into a chatbot to help guide some of the responses. So you can take this in a few different directions as you are setting up families for success, students for success, right? You name it. And now the next category is homework help. This is also a great area for families to leverage the power of a chatbot. So they might type in something like explain, and then they put in that tricky homework concept, because we know that if we're not like in the zone ourselves all the time, a concept that even might be at a 4th or 5th grade level, it takes us a minute to wrap our head around, right? In simple terms. So explain tricky homework concept in simple terms. Or give me practice questions and answers for that I can share with and then you put in some info about the child. Of course, reminding families, great opportunity to remind them that we're not putting in personal, private, sensitive information, just speaking more generally. Or the last one in the homework help category, I want to help my grade level age child with their homework. Can you help me understand this word problem? And then you pop in the word problem. So homework help is that next category. Next up, we've got Science Explorers. So this is a great one for families to try. Things that have to do with science, and keeping this a little loose for the first one, but I think it would count, which is you put in some food items in our refrigerator. What can we cook for dinner tonight? This might give you a recipe, and then families can talk about cooking or temperature or timing and all the things. Tell me about, then you plug in the scientific concept and how it impacts my child and me on a daily basis. I love this one for the why should I care about this type of questions that we all get. And then explain scientific phenomenon. You can put in anything there. Maybe it's photosynthesis with a metaphor. So for Science Explorers, it's a great way to make connections to the world around you and something kids might be learning in school. Now I've got 2 more categories for you. The next one is global connections. This is great for sparking conversations. You might encourage families to try this out if you're learning about different parts of the world. So maybe something like, what's the weather like you put in another country right now? Or teach me how to say hello in 5 different languages, or tell me about a traditional food from, and then you pop in the country. So great for global connections. And of course, with this last category, I can't help myself with a silly stuff category. This is also a lot of fun for families as well as for us to play around with. Maybe something like write a song about to the tune of, and you put in the topic and a popular song. or create 5 knock-knock jokes on, and you pop in the topic, or write a poem riddle about the topic that I can share with and then you pop in the grade or age of the child. So there you have it, a handful of categories for your consideration. You can find the full transcript of this, of course, on the show notes, so that way you'll have everything for after today in case you didn't jot something down or you want to share a category with a friend or colleague or family member. And so chatbots are super duper adaptable, right? We looked at a handful of categories right now, and I'm sure your wheels were spinning with a what about, right? What about this or what about that? And that's really what I'm hoping you get from today's episode. Some ideas that you can take back and share with your community. So let's make this EdTech easy with a few key points from today's episode. Share free chatbot links with families for 24/7 personal learning support. Provide chatbot prompt examples tailored to student interests and grade levels. Encourage using chatbots for interactive storytelling, science and math exploration, and creating jokes or songs. Remember, you can find the show notes and the full list of resources from this episode by heading over to classtechtips.com/podcast. You'll just want to find episode number 284. A big thank you to Everfi, our sponsor for this episode. These research-based resources come at no cost to all K-12 schools, districts, and students. Visit everfi.com/Monica. That's everfi.com/Monica to get started today for free. Thank you for listening to this new episode of the Easy EdTech podcast. I love creating new episodes for you each week, but I could use a bit of help spreading the word about the podcast. Can you leave a rating or review on your favorite podcast app? Spotify will let you tap on the stars, and Apple Podcasts will let you tap on the stars and leave a 1 or 2 sentence review. Thank you so much for taking this extra step. It helps other educators find episodes like this one when they're searching for EdTech tips.